In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to make significant cash contributions to your business. In other words, make chunks of money. This will help you pay down the debts on your existing cash flowing properties, but also it will allow you to buy more of those cash flowing properties and allow you to weather any economic storm that may come your way. And so remember, in the last video we talked about 4 ways from existing residential properties to make chunks of money, and in the previous 2 videos to that we talked about residential cash flow, how you get cash flow from residential properties, and then commercial properties where you get cash flowing from commercial properties. So all put together, this gives you a very successful model for building your property business. With that said, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe now, and remember to hit that notification bell so that you're advised of future videos when they become available. Okay, let's get, now just one further thing, just in case you haven't watched the rest of this series. These are taken from lessons within our Build It and Prosper community, which is free to join, incidentally. And you can, what you will find is that I introduce some of the content through this video saying in this lesson. That's because they were originally formed as lessons when I recorded this about a year ago. So let's get started with the content now. So in the next 3 lessons, we're going to talk about new build development. And the first one I want to cover is build to rent. This has become more popular in recent years because a lot of people are looking for rental properties, and they're looking for them at below market value. The problem is that there's so many people looking for those properties that they tend to be very, very scarce, and so therefore an alternative to that is to find some land and build a structure. Of course, there's a lot of benefits from building to rent as opposed to just buying properties, because what you can actually do is you can have all your rental properties in one location. So for instance, if you were to build a block of flats, and let's say there were 6 or 10 flats there, then it makes it much easier to manage that process if you own the entire building, because there's no disputes about maintenance costs because they fall under the one person or one company, which is you, and so you don't have those disputes that can happen between the different owners of the properties, and it means that you can get the work done if it needs to be done. It also means that it's much easier for you to control those properties, because you are able to go and make a single visit, maybe to do all your inspections, so you can inspect them all at the same time. You can do and there's lots of economies of scale because you would design them using all the same fittings, so you're able to buy replacement fittings in bulk, and so you create some uniformity, and you obviously, because you're buying in bulk, you're usually able to negotiate a far better price. But also the main thing is that you're generally able to build that for a lot less than if you were to buy the property. Now that is dependent on finding the land at the right price. And that's critical in whether you're doing build to rent or build to do anything, is finding the land at the right price. But we have a course on finding land, so that's designed to be able to find land generally not on the market, and check out all the different elements of that and negotiate it at the right price for you to make the development viable. Now, the only drawback with the build to rent is that when you come to new build properties, you can reclaim all the VAT back on materials, and in fact all the tradespeople who work on there, even if they're VAT registered, will not charge you VAT. So the VAT element for most of the items within the building, you're able to recover if indeed you actually pay it in the first place. However, the same is not the situation is not the same when you do a build to rent, because they actually treat that in the same way as if you did a renovation, and therefore unfortunately you do have to pay the VAT on this work that needs to be carried out. Nevertheless, providing you buy the land at the right price, this can be a very successful route if you are looking to eventually build the property to rent it out. Now, the other aspect to that is that you could still build to rent, but perhaps for you not to rent, but for somebody else to rent. So in other words, you build that as an asset that then they purchase and they are then going to rent out. And that just becomes a sale, in which case you can recover all the VAT on those materials and would not be charged on the labour element of the building. So I just wanted to take a few seconds out now to remind you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so as you don't miss out on any future videos. Okay, let's get back to the content. So in the next two lessons, you come to my favoured approach to creating chunks of money for your property development business. And the first one of those is build to sell. Now, very similar in respect of what we discussed in the previous lesson. You're simply sourcing land at the right price, and then building a structure on there. Now, that can be single occupancy houses, it could be a block of flats, but nevertheless, it is the same sort of situation. And again, depending on what part of the country and what your relative house price values are in that area, the higher the price value, higher price values, the greater the opportunity there is to make money out of the build to sell model. And as a rule of thumb, at a minimum, you should be looking to achieve a 25% profit on the selling value of that house, providing you do everything properly. So if you look at what the sort of, in your area, what house prices would sell for, and then work out 25% of that value, that is the sort of money that you should be able to generate from this model. But the other beauty of build to sell is that it has a compounding effect. So even if you start off with just one house, and let's say that was a house that you could sell for 400,000, and you make £100,000 profit, and let's say you started off with 50 or £100,000 in the initial stages. Now you've got 200,000. Now, of course, obviously you've got to take your living expenditure out of that, unless you already have a rental portfolio that's able to service that. So now but let's assume you do have a portfolio that services that your particular income that you need to generate from this. And of course, obviously on that 100,000 you're going to have to pay tax, but let's just kind of keep it simple. So you take the 200,000, now you've got now to move on to the next property, and perhaps you can probably build 2 houses with that. And also with that seed money, you're able to leverage more money, and then having successfully built 2 houses, it compounds, and you probably are able then to have enough cash to build 5 houses. And then before we get crazy, you can see how the numbers could then progress. Now, you can take some of that money and continue to do more development, or you can take some of those chunks of money, which is really the objective of this course, is about taking some of those chunks of money and paying down some of the debt on your cash flowing properties. And the benefit of doing that is, of course, now you have more cash flow because you've got less debt on it, and therefore you're paying off less debt, and you will have a stronger cash flow. So this helps over the longer term build your cash flow to the point where you have a debt-free portfolio, and then you're not concerned about a lot of the market conditions that can affect your business. Now I'll refer you to our course on Lower Your Risk, where I talk a lot more about that. But so that's the benefit of the build to sell model here. And in the final one, we're going to talk about the way that you can even do this without actually having to build anything. So in the final video of this 3-part series, we're going to talk about how you create chunks of money with very, very little money down. So that's going to be released on Wednesday. So remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed, and hit the notification bell so as you don't miss out in this series and the other videos that are to come. Take care.